Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major!
Hello and welcome to this episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they released. And today we are talking about Gods and Monsters from 1998. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And we have a super special guest today from the This Had Oscar Buzz podcast. It's Chris Feil. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I told you off mic, but I'm a huge fan. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because I fell in love with your podcast and other podcasts. So,
oh, thank you. Much appreciated. We are mostly just screwing around on our show and just hanging out and talking about failed awards movies.
Yeah. What's been some recent episodes y'all have done?
As of today, we just dropped our Lost City of Z episode. Nice. As of recording. Nice. We did Spielberg's Always recently. The Meddler, Lorraine Scafaria.
Oh, yeah.
That movie.
That's a good one.
Love The Meddler.
That's a good one.
Excuse me, you also covered a movie I didn't even know existed called Mary Riley, and I saw, because I follow you on Twitter, and I was like, wait, there was a Julia Roberts, John Malkovich, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde movie that I was completely unaware of.
We were all there for that.
Tommy Wiseau movie. Mary Riley was kind of a running gag on our show for a while. We have a lot of those. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in doing research for kind of a mini series we did, there was inclusion of that there was initially, or in some of the research that there was initially, you know, kind of that expectation mostly on a pre-production side. And so we were like, you know what, screw it. We're going to do this movie for Halloween. And I hadn't seen it in a very long time. It has Glenn Close as basically the most oi govna, you know, brothel matron you have ever seen, and she is sensational, and then the rest of the movie is not very good. But yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah. I'm curious. Y'all haven't done much horror movies because horror movies usually don't get Oscar buzz. But like, what would be like ones that actually did legitimately get Oscar buzz that you would like to cover? Because the first thing I think of recently is like Hereditary, but mostly people were just like, yeah, maybe, but probably not gonna happen. You know.
I mean, definitely we could. That's probably something we're kind of saving on the burner. A lot of horror movies we've, you know, saved for either special occasions or we just don't want to burn off. Hereditary is a great example. We've done episodes on like Us and Hannibal.
Yes. Oh, Hannibal.
I loved your Hannibal episode. Yeah.
Yeah, but today we are talking about Gods and Monsters, as I talked about previously. Opened on November 6th, 1998 in 6 theaters, and it maxed out at 149 theaters, a budget of $10 million opening weekend. It did $75,000 domestic and overall gross of $6.5 million. Top 5 films this weekend. This is actually the same top 5 we did for Belly. It's The Waterboy, The Siege, Pleasantville, Ants, and the re-release of Wizard of Oz. And I believe when we talked about that, Charlie talked about his aunt's story.
I went home and I cried because I didn't like a movie that I saw in theaters. It was the first time that ever happened.
Number 1 song in the U.S. this week is The First Night by Monica. Number 1 song in Canada this week is On a Day Like Today by Bryan Adams. Gods and Monsters follows a once powerful Hollywood director best known for Frankenstein. James Whale, played by Ian McKellen, is long since retired and is in increasingly poor health. His housekeeper, Hannah, played by Lynn Redgrave, quietly dismisses of Whale's faceless, nameless parade of gay young lovers. This is from Google, I'm sorry. But when the director takes an interest in a new gardener, Clay Boone, played by I'm sorry, I have podcast brain. Brendan Fraser. A former Marine and Korea War veteran, it seems to be for something more than just his usual casual conquest. Okay. That's one
casual
of the...
conquest?
His usual casual conquest, yes.
That's one way to phrase it. Jesus.
Nominated for 3 Oscars, Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress, and 1 Best Adapted Screenplay. Also nominated for Best Actor that year was Nick Nolte in Affliction, which we'll be covering in this miniseries. And this is, of course, the...
So good.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that. This is Judi Dench's win for Shakespeare in Love for Best Actress in Supporting Role, which Redgrave also got nominated in. And it did win the Adapted Screenplay, like I said. Also nominated Simple Plan, Out of Sight, Primary Colors, and The Thin Red Line. That is a banger of a year.
I mean, of the stuff I've seen, I'd probably pick like Out of Sight or A Simple Plan. I mean, those are just incredible. Like,
Thin Red Line might be my ultimate favorite of 1998, but in terms of screenplay, Out of Sight, I mean, goddamn, like that's also like a 5-star movie and probably my number one Soderbergh. So
it's up there for me. Yeah, it's incredible.
Every day that goes by, Schizopolis is becoming my number one, but never mind.
I still have to see.
That is a fucking wild time.
I think I mentioned this, but I got so stoned with someone that I was hooking up with at the time, and we kind of made out through Schizopolis. So my memory of that one is vague, to put it mildly.
Just every 10 minutes getting up. What's going on in this? Even if you were watching it, you wouldn't know what was going on.
Occasionally, we just look at the screen and there's a sign on a tree that says "idea missing," and we're just like, "Huh?"
Oh, I get it. Okay, what were we doing? Yeah.
Well, I remember that scene being cited in a negative review that Ignatiy Vishnevetsky did of Steve McQueen's Shame, where he said, like, you know, watching like the scene where Michael Fassbender's jogging through New York, I thought of the scene in Schizopolis where it says "idea missing" on a tree or whatever. I just thought, like, wow, what a
Go
bird.
fuck yourself. God damn. I was surprised they didn't go for the last shot where it has he's on the Amtrak and it says "work in progress" behind him, and I was just like, I kind of like that. But if somebody says that's stupid, then I guess it's stupid. I don't know.
Chris, where do you stand on Shame?
Yes, please.
I like it.
I do too.
I really, really love Steve McQueen. So, like, I don't know. I understand a lot of the complaints about Shame, but I'm with it.
Oh yeah, it's top 4 for me. I mean, the gay scene I can understand, and it's unneeded and stupid, but all the rest, I mean, that's when Fassbender puts in a bad performance, it just hurts me even more because I'm just like, God damn it, dude, you can make Shame. Come on now. He's so fucking good at Shame.
We're in a group chat, Chris, where like basically some people are like Shame one of the best films of the decade or one of the worst films of the decade. It's like the most polarizing like thing in that particular chat, I'd say.
I mean, I think McQueen's made better movies, but I also think like and maybe this is less so now, but at least in that phase of his career, he's definitely, you know, interested in taking these physical experiences and, you know, getting to the psychology of the physicality of it, if that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, I totally get it.
You know, like anything that comes out of my mouth. But I think, you know, you kind of have to come at that movie about, you know, this is someone putting you in a physical and psychological space and, you know, kind of examining it from there. And I think people try to come at it from a different point of view. I have less of an issue with the scene where he like makes out or gets a blowjob from a guy, because I'm not one of those people that thinks that that is like, you know, the base lowest that character is taken to, because at that point you still have like 45 minutes of that movie still to go, of that character, you know, really psychologically torturing himself. So yeah, I take less umbrage with that scene.
That's an also this had Oscar buzz, but it was never going to happen because it's an NC-17 movie.
Very close, though.
Yeah,
very close.
It did get the Golden Globe. It didn't George Clooney, like, he thanked him because he was just like, well, he went full frontal and I wasn't going to do that or something like that.
He does mention him in his speech, yeah.
You know, wonderful young actors I met. I'd like to thank Michael Fassbender for taking over the frontal nudity responsibility that I had. Really, Michael, honestly, if you can play golf like this with your hands behind your back, Go for it, man. Do it.
Gods and Monsters, directed and adapted for the screen by Bill Condon. Prior to this, Sister Sister in 1987, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh in 1995, another after this, Kinsey in 2004, Dreamgirls 2006, I did not see it, and Bryden was a big fan of The Good Liar in 2019.
Well, also, let's not forget he did the last two Twilight movies, the two-parter.
Oh yeah, let's not forget.
I have some friends who got really drunk before their screening of Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. And I've only seen the first Twilight, but I know all about the massacre that happens at the end of that movie that apparently doesn't happen in the book. And apparently they just, like, erupted. And everyone else who was, like, you know, got, like, GoFobo passes or whatever was like, this did not happen! And then apparently the next day, one of my friends was so hungover that they texted another friend who went to that screening and went, shit, was that in 3D?
Was it in 3D?
No.
I think the Twilights avoided 3D.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I wanted to see my man be like a spider monkey in 3D in the first one. What was happening? Yeah, The Good Liar. Bryden, you've seen The Good Liar?
It was the first thing I watched as Condon research.
Okay.
Research, watching movies that are on my streaming services. But
Uh-huh.
I'd seen that, The Twilights, and Sister Sister, and then I watched this. And I don't know. I mean, this seems. We'll get into it, I guess. It seems like he alternates, I guess, between like middlebrow, like sort of prestige-y movies and like occasionally like trashy thrillers like The Good Liar and Sister Sister. But like, it's kind of interesting to see him, I guess, go between those two modes. I think he's honestly better at this middlebrow thing. Like I like Gods and Monsters of the three movies I watched. Of the three movies I watched of his, like in the last 2 weeks, there were Sister Sister, Good Liar, and this. This is probably the best one that I've seen from him.
This is the only Bill Condon film I've seen.
Oh wow!
Oh no!
I
don't know why it's surprising.
It just came back to me that I was on a flight to Europe several years ago, 10 years ago, Jesus, and some middle-aged man sitting next to me watched Breaking Dawn Part 1 and then fell asleep, so the movie kept playing on loop for 12 hours. So I felt like I've seen that one just through osmosis, sure. But like I just remember when he was awake, I just kept looking back over and I was just like, Jesus, they're still getting married? What is this, a deer hunter?
I remember Ebert reviewing it, like talking about how, like I think he talked about how long the wedding was, but he also said like their sex is so intense on the wedding night they break the bed. Good gravy or whatever.
Yeah, they do. I do remember looking over and seeing that. I remember the birth scene. I feel like such a bad gay for not having seen Dreamgirls. Is Dreamgirls good?
A movie I really, really love and adore.
Yeah.
I've kind of always been a bit of a Bill Condon defender until I saw Beauty and the Beast, and I was like,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, he did that as well. Yeah.
I mean, of all of his movies that I've seen, which I think I've seen everything but Breaking Dawn 2 and the one before the Candyman sequel, I mean, he's kind of morphed into being somewhat of this studio guy who can also get his, somewhat of what seems like a one for you, one for me, like doing some of these studio movies enables him to do The Good Liar or Mr. Holmes. And like, I definitely think his more interesting movies like this are past him. I also kind of stand up for Kinsey, which, on its surface is kind of this really straightforward biopic, but I think very much in the mold of something you would have seen like towards the mid-century when the movie actually takes place. But obviously it has all of this extreme sexual frankness in it that never could have been achieved at that time, even though Kinsey was working at that time. And then I love Dreamgirls. Dreamgirls, I think, is like kind of the underrated movie musical of like the past 25 years. He was really passionate about doing it. He got that gig after he did the script for Chicago, and they were like, okay, what movie musical should be made next? And he made the hardcore pitch for Dreamgirls, which I think just in terms of sheer like narrative storytelling, understanding the medium of how a musical works, like almost nobody making musicals today does understand that the way, to the extent that I think Bill Condon does. And for a while I was like, he should make another musical, and then he goes and makes Beauty and the Beast, which is abominable. But yeah, I definitely stick up for a number of his movies.
Dreamgirls is fascinating to me as someone who's never seen it, but I remember vividly, because that was around the time I started. I mean, yeah, I was a teenager when it came out, so I was paying attention to the Oscars, and I remember thinking, oh, that's like gonna win Best Picture, just from seeing the poster. Like, oh, that's gonna...
And then, of course, it's not nominated.
It's not even nominated, and then it turned into The Departed versus Babel, which is so, especially as a time capsule, so fascinatingly weird.
Yeah.
And I remember Jennifer Hudson obviously won. I remember Eddie Murphy seemed like a lock, and then people blamed him losing to Alan Arkin for Norbit on Norbit. Yeah,
right.
Which I watched Norbit on a day I got dumped. That was one of the darkest days of my adolescence.
No.
Just one of those. Just one of those. How did this end up happening? kind of nights. Just utterly baffled by everything going on in my life at that moment in time.
Sure. Yeah. I do remember. I think this was like earlier this year in our group chat. We were talking with our friend Mitchell Beaupre about there was like some article or some tweet about like applause-inducing moments in movies or whatever, and it was like Dreamgirls was on the list, and I was like, really? Like people were applauding in the theater when Dreamgirls came out, and Mitchell was like, yeah,
they did it.
And they were like, yes, that did happen. I was like, okay, stay corrected. I wasn't there, so like that was interesting.
The only time I can remember that happening is, you know, in Oklahoma when Holes came out and the credits rolled, people were going nuts. That's it. That's the only time I can remember anybody clapping after a movie. And Holes has that like Predator credits where it has the scene and the actor's name and all that, so it goes on for like 2 minutes, and these motherfuckers were acting like it was Khan. Like, this was ridiculous.
I saw First Man at like 3 p.m. in a theater with like maybe 12 people, and this old woman just kept walking in and out of the theater. Like, you know when you go to a Regal and there's that aisle that leads to the exit or whatever? She just kept walking in and out, and I was like, what is this person doing? And then it got to the point where they said, we've successfully landed on the moon, and she came out of the aisle and just started going... like, nobody... And we were all just like all 12 of us just started cackling because we were like, really?
She shows up to every screen just to make everybody know that was a good moment in history. Yeah. Gods and Monsters was based on the book on Father of Frankenstein by Christopher Bram, which that is also a partial fiction, partial nonfiction writing, and this stars Ian McKellen as James Whale. Prior to this, The Keep in 1983, Scandal in 1989. Has anybody seen this?
No.
I think sorry, go ahead.
I think that was like an early Miramax like advertising as like the most controversial film of the year type thing.
Oh. I think that might have been a movie that I watched on like an old Siskel and Ebert episode where like they were talking about like underseen movies, so I check it on home video. I think that might have been one where I first heard about it, but yeah, I have not seen it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I think it was almost initially, but after it was also given an X rating, but then it was appealed twice to an R. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure on the poster it was like, the story that seduced the world is now the most controversial film of the year. Oh yeah, it is.
Sounds like a
I'll
scandal.
watch it. I know. God fucking damn it. Okay. Where was I? God damn it. After this, the X-Men movies, Lord of the Rings movies, nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Fellowship of the Ring, and man oh man, if him and Condon didn't link up again for Mr. Holmes in 2015. Brendan Fraser as Clay Boone prior to this, School Ties in 1992, George of the Jungle the same year. After this, the Mummy movies, and of course Monkey Bone in 2001 because that movie kicks ass. It does. Check it out. It's not that good, but it's fun.
I watched it when it was on HBO a lot as a kid. I most vividly remember Chris Klein throwing his organs at Brendan
Chris
Fraser. Or Chris Kattan, excuse me. Jesus Christ. Yeah, aren't they like, are they hanging from like a hot air balloon or something? And like he's just throwing like a spleen and like some intestines, and then they all like land on like a family's barbecue grill or something.
Yes,
like,
yeah. It's called comedy.
Movie.
Why don't you laugh? Yeah.
I think I can hang with this. I've never seen Monkey Bone, but this is definitely selling me.
It's
on
a demented movie. I haven't seen
it's just
it
like before I make Coraline, Henry Selick was like, I gotta make Monkey Bone. It's gotta happen.
That movie was a huge bomb, right? I remember people despised that thing. Yeah.
Lynn Redgrave as Hannah. Prior to this, nominated for Best Actress for Georgie Girl in 1966, Shine in 1996. After this, The Annihilation of Fish in 1999, Spider in 2002, and also was in Kinsey in 2004. Trivia. I unfortunately did not get around to the commentary track for this. I'm very sorry. I spent $10 for no reason. As of 2020, this is one of only 3 movies since the advent of the Best Screenplay Adapted from Another Medium Oscar to win the award without receiving a Best Picture nomination, the others being The Bad and the Beautiful in 1952 and Sling Blade in 1996.
Huh.
Oh, Sling Blade. I could have sworn that got a Best Picture nom.
I would have assumed too as well, yeah.
That's a movie. I was, when I took a journalism class, that was my assigned movie to write a review for, because I had seen every other movie that was getting assigned. How does that one hold up? Because I can see that one
no idea.
Not
I saw it in I saw it in like 2004, and I was like 12, and I was like, this is an adult movie, this kicks ass. But I have no idea what it is now.
Maybe we should watch it as Billy Bob research from when we do Monsters Ball, possibly.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh man, that movie.
We're doing that in 3 weeks, so that's gonna be.
Let me tell you, Sling Blade, not having seen it in 20 years, definitely holds up. With my utter certainty, I would bet my whole bank account holds up better than Monsters Ball.
You've heard it here, folks. Okay.
Yeah, I watched Monsters Ball in high school and liked it, and I'm just thinking back on it like, no.
I don't know anything about it. Like,
Oh, you don't?
well, because I was like 9 or 10 when it came out. The only thing I remember back then, it was just like fucking Halle Berry and Billy Bob have a sex scene. That's it. I don't know. Apparently Diddy's in it, so that's going to be fun.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep, he's in it. Heath Ledger's in it.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yep.
Peter Boyle as, you
Oh,
know,
God.
stock racist
Oh,
father.
God.
Doesn't Halle Berry like storm out of the house and she's like, I met your daddy, and then just drives away?
Yes. I mean, Halle Berry, like, does the best with offensive material that I think she can do, and like she clearly is a good actress, but that movie,
Yeah.
Curious. I'm a big all right, I already forgot the director's name. What's his name?
Mark
Forster.
Forster.
Yeah, I'm a big Mark Forster fan. Yeah.
A Man Called Otto, only in theaters this
He's also doing. I was looking through his filmography. He's doing that Wonder sequel where it's like saying, you know, you're a bully now. I should tell you about the time that I grew up in Nazi Germany or whatever.
What?
You're turning out to be a bully. You know what you need to learn about the Holocaust.
That's kind of like the movie. What is it? The Devil's Rhythmic, with Kirsten Dunst, where she's like a bratty teenage, and she's going over Thanksgiving, and her grandparents are like Holocaust survivors, and she like somehow falls asleep and has a dream where she was actually in the Holocaust and wakes up and just like loves her grandparents now.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have never heard of
It's actually, it's not that bad, but that part of it is, yeah, it's rough. I think it was a TV movie. I forget who did it. It was somebody well known. I'll look it up in a sec. The ending scene where Clay Boone lurches around his ally like Frankenstein's monster was suggested to Bill Condon by Brendan Fraser. Well, he brings things to the table, I guess.
Lights, sound. Okay for sound.
Action. The Bride of Frankenstein.
A man with a legendary career behind him.
Who's this new yard man?
Mr. Boom, I thought something big.
A man with his life still ahead of him.
Hey, the master wants to know if you're free for lunch.
I do have a lawn this afternoon. I'm free until then.
Come in, Mr. Boone.
Separated by class.
Are you famous?
I was merely a director. You have the most architectural skull. Have you ever sat for an artist?
They have nothing in common.
Mr. Clayton Boone, my gardener. He's never met a princess, only queens.
Except their humanity.
I've spent much of my life outrunning the past. And now it floods all over me.
Why are you here? Let's get this straight. What did you want from me?
What do you want?
To a new world of gods and monsters.
So, we understand each other.
Live and let live.
But yeah, that's all I have for the trivia. As our special guest, Chris Feil, what are your initial thoughts on Gods and Monsters? You had seen this previously. Did you rewatch it for the pod or anything?
I did. I really like this movie. I mean, I think in terms of, again, like Bill Condon, I feel does in Kinsey, does pretty standard biopic things with this movie, but I do think that there's a lot of, like, really kind of potent emotion in this movie, and of course it's led by Ian McKellen giving one of his best performances. I had seen this movie as a kid, probably too young, but like, of course, loved the like movie history of it. It was probably one of the first movies I ever saw that showed a penis, so like that blew my mind. I do really like Brendan Fraser in this movie. Boo hiss to the movie that he has coming out. Lynn Redgrave is an absolute cartoon in this movie.
She got nominated for this.
I know, but I can't help but like, I get it.
She's fun, but that's so surprising to me.
It's very, very silly, and she might have been second place considering she won the Globe for it. I forgot about that. Also, this Oscar ceremony, if you watch when Bill Condon wins his adapted screenplay Oscar, the three of them are just like watching like three little children at Christmas. Like, they're in a huddle together. They're all
Papa
so
did
happy.
it.
They're just beaming. So like that probably tells you, you know, something about the production of this movie, and like they probably thought that they were underdogs. This is 1998, even for an independent studio like Lionsgate at the time, you know, producing something that is queer oriented. Maybe they thought three people would get to see this movie. But there's clearly like a lot of pride within the production, that they got to, you know, achieve that level of success. Yeah, I like this movie quite a bit.
Okay. Bryden, initial thoughts?
Yeah, I had not seen this. It was, I think I'd heard about it maybe when, like, I heard about it when, like, Breaking Dawn was coming out and people were talking about, like, oh, yeah, Condon, you know, he had, like, Gods and Monsters and stuff. And I was like, oh, what's that? And
you don't know about that? Are you not Condon enough? And you're just like, okay, I'm not cool enough for this. Okay.
As I don't know if I could call this research, but like I've seen in the last couple of months some of James Whale's old horror movies, and those are quite good. I really liked his Frankenstein, and The Invisible Man was a lot of fun too. And it is nice. I mean, it's funny, the scene where they're all watching Bride of Frankenstein, and they're talking about like comedy and horror. You can't have those two together. Like and I'm like just thinking like, oh my gosh, film conversations in the 50s. If this is what it was like, that must have been terrible.
I kind of feel the same now, because horror comedies are very hard to pull off.
Right, but like, I mean, Invisible Man, like, it is funny because like he's like just starting out pulling off pranks and everything, and then like it very quickly escalates to like, maybe I should kill this entire carve people on a train or whatever. But yeah. So, and it's fun when Condon tries to, like, you know, do like the sort of like old like black and white horror movie style and everything, with like all the Dutch angles and like the sparks shooting out from like the electrocution that like gives Frankenstein's monster. When he tries to recreate that, it's cute, and like he's like, you know, trying some fun stuff camera wise, which I don't always associate with Condon. I feel like he's pretty traditional with his camera movements and editing, and even in some of the trasher movies that we've mentioned, like Sister Sister and The Good Liar. But yeah, I thought this was okay. McKellen and Fraser are the reason to see it, if you're going to see it at all. I mean, McKellen is like, I sometimes like underappreciate him, I think, as an actor, maybe because I think I feel like most of the stuff I've seen him in is like blockbuster stuff, like the Hobbit movies, or, you know, the X-Men movies. Goodness,
I still can't get over the fact that you've seen the Hobbits but not the Lord of the Rings.
I know. I was thinking, is it gonna come up? Yeah, I've seen I've been asked to see the Hobbits, but not the Lord of the Rings movies.
Because he's so good in Lord of the Rings.
He is.
It's also funny too. Like, he looks basically the same for like the last like 40 years. Like, it's funny, and I always think this is funny. Like in The Keep, you know, he's like playing like someone's elderly father, and then like he gets somehow in the incoherent plot of that movie, he gets de-aged. They say like, oh, he's like a younger man. I'm like, if you insist, like if he doesn't look, he looks basically the same to me. But
yeah,
he's really good in this, and like he really like he's able to like put you at ease with like sort of like his soft, like gentle, like grandfatherly voice and everything. But then there are times when like he'll like when he will get like put off by some of Fraser's remarks and everything, he'll like drop the pitch in his voice, and like you'll be like, oh no. And then there's that whole scene where he's like facing off against Fraser, and he's like tilting his head and like just like bugging his eyes out, and like, whoa, this is like really intense, and like I admire that. Fraser, I think, is good in this. I like sort of the sort of tittering naivete that he has to some of his scenes, like when he asked like Ian McKellen initially, like, are you, like, forgive me, are you famous and everything? Like he does almost seem like boyish in that moment. And then there are times where I feel like he does get these like frightening flashes of aggression, like when he has that scene with Lolita Davidovich, and then he like shoves the car door like shut for her and everything, and then he immediately is like, oh man, I'm sorry, this is all coming out wrong. Like he is able to like get those emotional fluctuations quite well. I think he maybe falters a little bit near the end. I think like some of he doesn't quite, for me at least, I don't know if he quite gets the tone right. Like there's the scene where he's talking to McKellen, and they're talking about like McKellen's time in war or whatever, and like McKellen says like, oh, a lot of us didn't survive, and then like Fraser, he's like bathed in like half in shadows and half in light, and he's like, you survived. I'm like saying like, why? I'm thinking like, why are you saying it like it's an accusation or something like that? It's like it's very. I think it's meant to be like a tender moment of comfort to like, but like I don't know. I do. So I mean, you're right, Chris, that this does hit a lot of traditional biopic beats, especially in the sense that like there are a lot of biopics about like, yeah, we're gonna look at this very iconic, famous figure, but also, who's really interesting? This person who is kind of on the fringes watching it all. Like my week with Marilyn is like a really terrible example of that, where it's like Marilyn Monroe's fascinating. You know who is also interesting? This production designer who knew her for a week, and it's like
this idiot that had a crush on her.
Yeah.
Isn't that idiot played by Eddie Redmayne too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's another idiot who has a crush on him, played by Emma Watson.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's a bad movie.
Yeah.
But Blonde came and solved everything. Like,
I'm not gonna touch that. Haven't seen it, but yeah.
I felt the need to watch that movie, and then by the time I was like, I have to have my own take, and then by the time I watched it, no one cared. It was just the conversation was over by then.
Guys, I watched Blonde, and no, I spent 3 hours on this. Please, we have to talk about it.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, it's fine. But so it does hit those. So I guess like no. I was maybe, a little ill-informed, not entirely aware that, like, this was, like, part fiction and everything, and finding out that Fraser's character is made up and everything, which, like, that's fine. There have been good movies that have, like, dealt with, like, fudging the facts or, like, making up characters wholesale. I guess it really is a matter of how engaging it is or how it feeds into the whole project, but, like, I don't know. I'm kind of not entirely on board with how this movie, I mean, yes, you're right that it is cool to think about at the time that like this was like presenting queerness in like a relatively forthright manner and everything, where but like there is also like a way that like so many of the sexual encounters in this movie are like steeped in like a sense of like shame, or like it's some kind of like it's I don't think I'm not trying to put like they're calling him like a dirty old man, and then having like the James Whale in this movie assault Brendan Fraser near the end as like some sort of desperate thing. It makes me, I don't know, it does make me wonder, especially, I'm trying to find my thought here, with Fraser not being real, it's like, why is it in the movie to have, like I feel, it feels, I don't know much about Whale's personal life, if maybe there was, like, stuff that happened in his life that, like, or stuff that he did, maybe it's totally possible, lots of directors have done that kind of stuff, but, like, it does make me think, like, how it feels almost like if this didn't actually happen, it's like, is that like kind of a fuck you to James Whale when there really like doesn't need to be? And like, I don't know. And then I don't know, having it all end on Fraser where like he's lurching off into the alley like Frankenstein, I just feel like and having him be like, a prejudiced character who like says like, yeah, like, but like this like that my attachment to this guy was important, when it's like, I don't know, you were like pretty cruel to him, and also like I don't know what you got from this experience. And then also like I was joking in our group chat about like, you know, it's that scene is just goofy to me because I imagine like as he's walking off, like his wife just like saying like, "Honey, where are you going?" Like, but I don't know. So it makes me wonder like exactly how valuable this movie's presentation of queerness is, and also like whether it should be to devote this much time to Fraser's perspective. But I think there's definitely some good stuff in this, and we'll talk more about it as we go on. But I want to give the floor to some others in this chat.
Just for the sake of keeping it going, and I don't have any deep thoughts as you two do. It's whatever to find to me. Also, the very basic biopic structure that it has and whatnot, and it does. I do like it whenever it kind of gets out of it and gets into James Wells's imagination and whatnot. Like it starts out really, really intuitive with all of that, and then by the end of it it's kind of forgetful. But I did like the end where it's constantly going back and forth to younger him and older him, but it kind of drops out. But yeah, I mean, Ian McKellen's great in it. Brendan Fraser is like just there to be hot, which that's fine.
I don't see a problem there.
Where he's just like, duh, I mowed the lawn, and then that's about it. But yeah, it's fine. I don't like it as much as Shadow of the Vampire, which I did listen to that commentary, and we'll talk about that later. But Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this until recently. I had heard about it, mainly because of McKellen and Fraser. As I mentioned, it's the only Bill Condon film I have seen, and I think I like this movie primarily because of the performances, not so much the direction. I do think it is... I agree with you, Bryden. I wrestle with the same things about the ending, especially if he, isn't a real character, and I also don't have as much encyclopedic knowledge on Whale's personal life. But I did find it to be interesting that both of their forms of masculinity, even, if Brendan Fraser is, questioning or heteroflexible, whatever, I do think it's interesting that many scenes in this movie alternate between one of them asking them about their personal life and then the other's like, what the fuck? Like why did you dig up this trauma? And just like from both ends. I kind of like that it's not just Brendan Fraser, even though he does have outbursts. Like he gets Ian McKellen in that spot too, where he's just like, dude, I'm just asking you something. Like, or half the time too, Brendan Fraser's like, dude, you started this conversation. So like, I do find that to be interesting. I mean, I did think some of the lines were funny and kind of sad when, like, they attend that party and, like, he's introducing Brendan Fraser to the princess and he's just like, oh, this guy's only, he's never met a princess before, only queens, and then it's just like, huh? And she's like, never mind, let's go. Like, like, I found that stuff to be enjoyable. Chris, in your Letterboxd review, you mentioned, wow, they actually found someone that looked like Elizabeth Taylor, and I thought that was funny.
Oh my god,
yeah.
like... Especially, like, that era Elizabeth Taylor. It was, yeah.
Yeah. It's very on the nose. There's not a lot of subtlety here, but I do think that as a time capsule, too, I just miss Brendan Fraser so much. I understand your criticisms, Bryden, but I thought, especially in 98 when he's an up-and-coming star, I'm like, this is, questionable aspects of the depictions of queerness aside, this is a brave performance on his part. Had Ian McKellen come out by the time this movie was released?
I mean, he took a boyfriend to the Oscars,
yeah.
So maybe not, but...
Yeah, I will say, I did think that this movie was going to be one thing where, like, it was going to be Ian McKellen being like, I'm so old and sad, and not really, like, as porny as he is.
He came out in 1988.
All right, so 10 years since... Yeah, okay,
wow,
that's wild.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting. I liked that he's not just... He's clearly, obviously repressed, but he's not repressed because of, like... He's full of shame, but I do kind of like that his queerness just kind of comes out naturally, as opposed to just, like... I don't know. Even if it's in some problematic ways, as we've mentioned about the ending, I do like that Ian McKellen's sexuality is, like, at the forefront, like, even at the beginning when he does that very weird striptease routine with the interviewer, which, at first when that started, I was like, oh god, it's gonna be one of these, where I was just like, is this gonna, like, this framing device, okay, and I'm glad that got dropped pretty quickly. Yeah, I found it fascinating kind of as a 90s time capsule, and in terms of how, looking back on what as a portrait into how male queerness was depicted back then in comparison to where it is now, more so than a dramatically compelling story, because I agree, like, the conventional stuff, I agree, Brad, and I think the last shot is kind of awful. Like, I just don't think
but the place in it is, the place in the movie is
it's
stupid.
very strange. And yeah, you get to the end and you are like, well, Brendan Fraser learned stuff about, like, masculinity, I guess, but yeah, like, it's not like they had, like, a healthy relationship in any way. So to tell his son, like, yeah, we knew about, like, I knew him, and it's like, yeah, and you two were kind of horrible to each other. It is kind of interesting in that respect. I know this is gonna sound terrible because we're recording this in the year 2022, but I couldn't help but think about how in terms of queer men and PTSD are depicted, if any of you haven't seen Benediction, which is one of the best films of the year,
incredible. I
think that something like that, with like the way Terrence Davies directs that type of story, it's a different story, but it also deals with, a veteran who is coping with his with sexual repression and PTSD. I felt like I couldn't help but compare it to how the directorial choices in that are so beautiful and flourishing, where here they're just kind of standard, which I didn't go into this movie expecting that, but I couldn't help but think about how much that movie, like, just tore my heart apart, and this was just kind of like there. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah.
Quick funny thing about Ian McKellen. 2003, during an appearance on Have I Got the News for You, McKellen claimed when he visited Michael Howard, then Environment Secretary responsible for local government, in 1988 to lobby against this Section 28, which is about the UK didn't want authorities to promote homosexuality. Howard refused to change his position, but did ask him to leave an autograph for his children. McKellen agreed, but wrote, "Fuck off, I'm gay."
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a story that he also rips out all the homophobic passages of the Bible when he goes to hotel rooms? Or am I making that up?
Oh.
I thought that was like a story.
I don't know. Let's run with it.
I'd like to believe it's real. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Let's get into the plot. In 1950, James Whale, the director of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, has retired. He lives with his longtime housemaid, Hannah, who loyally cares for him, but disapproves of his homosexuality. Thank you, Wikipedia. He has suffered a series of strokes that has left him fragile and tormented by memories. Growing up as a poor outcast, his tragic World War I service, and the filming of Bride of Frankenstein, Will slips into his past and indulges in his fantasies, reminiscent about gay pool parties and sexually teasing an embarrassed starstruck fan. He battles depression and at the time contemplates suicide, and he realizes his life, his attractiveness, and his health are slipping away. Will befriends his young, handsome gardener, Clay Boone, and the two begin a somewhat uneasy friendship as Boone poses for Will's sketches. The two men bond while discussing their lives and dealing with Will's spells of disorientation and weakness from the strokes. Boone, impressed with Whale's fame, watches Bride of Frankenstein on television as his friends mock the movie, his friendship with Whale, and Whale's intentions. His friends suck.
Yeah, one of the bartenders is Kevin J. O'Connor, who was in The Mummy with Fraser like the next year, which is funny to think about.
Benny, what an insufferably... He's so good in that movie, but he's such a little weasel in it.
For sure. Mummy's so good. Yeah.
You guys seen The Mummy? Yeah. That was an early. I remember watching that movie when it came out, so it must have been about 7 or 8. And the scene where the bugs crawl into the dude's arms, I remember just leaving the living room, and I went. My mom was in her room, and I was like, I can't watch it anymore. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I was scared out of my damn mind.
No, I was in the same boat where I saw that movie when I was like 10. I saw it when The Mummy Returns came out because a lot of my friends were starting to see that, and it is funny how like that movie as a kid was so horrifying, but you watch it now and it's like such a screwball comedy.
It's a cartoon.
Like it's got like after they resurrect the mummy, it's just got yeah, exactly. Brendan Fraser's just like packing a suitcase, like you just had to read from the Book of the Dead, and Rachel Weisz is like, well, you can leave, I'm staying, and it's like His Girl Friday or Bringing Up Baby, like levels of like just physical comedy and the way it's staged and everything, and it was just like, God, we don't get stuff like that anymore. It really did make me nostalgic for all those movies.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Charlie. There was just 5 years ago. There was The Mummy that came out, right?
Yeah, come on. I saw the trailer. Tom Cruise was just like screaming. It was funny.
Sophia Boutella cinema.
That was the first movie where I was like, is my allegiance to Tom Cruise waning? Because, boy howdy, I would watch him play the shark in Jaws, but that was too much. Boone assures Whale that he's straight and receives Whale's assurance that there is no sexual interest, but Boone storms out while Whale graphically describes his sexual history. Boone later returns with an agreement that no such quote-unquote locker talk discussions occur again.
Locker room talk, my gosh. Yeah,
like, oh, no. Was that a phrase back then? Really?
I guess so.
I guess.
But, like, it's just like cursed now, like just hearing it. Like,
can we talk about this actually though? Because it cuts from him being like, I'm not a fairy, all right, and then he goes and like has sex with that woman that he was arguing with before after the movie, where she's just like, you don't have your shit together, and then he basically
it's not Davidovich, I don't think he has sex with. It's like she's gone out on a date with someone else, and then it like racks focus to like some blonde girl in the background, and then it cuts to them having like very just sort of functional sex, I guess.
Yeah, but he's like, he's going hard, man. Like, he's just like...
he has to prove it to himself.
Is that what the movie's supposed to take it away, is like Brendan Fraser's questioning? Nope. He's like, I just had the best sex of my life. I'm not gay. I can go back now. Like, is that what the movie's basically saying?
I don't know, because then I also think about, like, at the end where he's, like, domesticized and has a family, and is that, like, him covering up? It never really speaks on that, so I really don't know.
But it has an attitude where the wife only has like a "you never take out the trash" type of like vibe, where I'm just like,
God damn it, I should have been gay. Yeah. Boone is invited to escort Whale to a party hosted by George Cukor for Princess Margaret. There, a photo op has been arranged for Whale with his quote-unquote monsters, Boris Karloff and Elsa Lanchester, from ancient movie fame. This event exasperates Whale's depression. A sudden rainstorm becomes an excuse to leave. That scene, even though that woman does look like Elizabeth Taylor, that has a big biopic energy where it's just like, look, it's Elizabeth Taylor, and like audience clap. Yeah, it's just like, oh, that I know. Yeah, okay.
Elvis Presley, he's here. Yeah, I love the movies do that.
Well, what is the movie where you said where it starts and they're like talking about Nirvana or something? What was that movie, Charlie?
Oh shit, what was that movie?
Anyways,
there is. I mean, I often go back to Kill Your Darlings, where Daniel Radcliffe raises his hand in class and he just goes, "What's your name, sir?" Allen Ginsberg, and the teacher goes, "Allen Ginsberg," as if like
that's never going to be a famous name.
Just like in life, you know.
Yeah. No people. Yeah. Why don't we give you the name Solo?
Yeah, I forget what it was, but you said the movie started where it's like, man, I can't believe Kurt Cobain killed himself, and you're like, oh, it's the 90s, of course.
No, you know what? It's not Nirvana. It's 88 Minutes with Al Pacino, where they set it because they set the movie up, and there's a flashback to 1996 or whatever, and one of the characters just goes, "I can't believe Princess Diana died," like, and you think it's gonna have some sort of important like some sense of significance.
Wait, this
later
is in
on.
1996, and then after you hear that, you're like, oh, my bad.
No, it's just supposed to show how 1996 or whenever Princess Di died was. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, where was I? Back at Whale's home, Clayton needs a dry change of clothes. Whale can only find a sweater, so Clayton wears a towel wrapped around his waist. Whale decides to try to sketch Clayton one more time. After some minutes, he shows his sketches to Clayton, disclosing that he has lost his ability to draw. After Clayton drops his towel to pose nude, Whale makes him wear a World War I gas mask and then uses the opportunity to make a sexual advance on Clayton, kissing his neck and shoulders and forcefully reaching for him. And in a rage, Clayton fights off Whale, who confesses that this had been his plan and begs Clayton to kill him to relieve him of his suffering. Clayton refuses, puts Whale to bed, and then sleeps downstairs.
Also, Sorry.
Go ahead.
One other thing that's going on through this scene, and like, you know, the movie will occasionally like, you know, try these stylistic flourishes to show like, you know, Will's like, you know, fractured sort of state of mind as he's having a stroke. Where like, I mean, Carter Burwell does the music, and I normally like his music, but I found it was like really obtrusive. Where he'll like be trailing off mid sentence and like hard cut to like a close up, and like the Burwell music will just start swelling, and like the camera's like, you know, sort of like tilting, like, you know, like, whoa, it's super woozy, and it's like, it feels like it's maybe trying a little too much to convey this state of mind, when McKellen's performance, I think, is perfectly good enough to convey that. But
I also had to wonder where Lynn Redgrave was during all of this.
She's visiting her daughter. That's what it is, I think.
Oh yeah.
She's just like sipping whiskey in her bedroom, like rolling her eyes, like, oh, this shit again. Like
curlers and
curlers. Yeah.
Carter Burwell, you mean the man who gave us the score of Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, the legend himself?
Hey, he's got a good score this year for Banshees of Inisherin. I really like that.
Oh,
score.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And Carol. And let's not forget Carol.
Haven't seen it.
Blair Witch 2, but yeah, okay. The next morning, Hannah is alarmed when she can't find Will, prompting a search by Clayton and Hannah. Clayton finds Will floating dead in the pool. As a distraught Hannah runs out, clenching a suicide note. Clayton and Hannah agree that he should disappear from the scene and avoid a scandal. The fact that they just throw his ass back in the pool is pretty funny.
I know. Doesn't she say something too? She's like, "We mean you no disrespect," and then just like tosses him.
Yeah, and he's like face up too and everything, which is like, I imagine that would look very weird. The police is like, wait, he drowned just from like floating? All right.
Yeah. And it becomes clear. It also becomes clear that she's very much in love with him from this point on. Not like we couldn't get that from before, but I think that's supposed to add to the dramatic weight of her character, and probably why she got an Oscar nomination is probably for that last scene, I would assume.
Probably, yeah. Lastly, a decade later, Clayton and his son Michael watch Bride of Frankenstein on television. Michael is skeptical of his father's claim that he knew Will, but Clayton produces a sketch of the Frankenstein monster drawn by Will and signed to Clayton, friend, ? Clayton later walks down a street at night in the rain, mimicking the movements of Frankenstein's monster. I don't think his son would be that impressed. He'd be like, I knew the director. He'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go eat some chicken nuggets, Dad. I don't fucking care.
Yeah, but the movie plays it like this super reverential moment where
what?
Like, wow.
You knew him?
Yeah.
I also have this book. I wanted to bring this up. I've only read the parts that for research that were about James Whale, but I have this book called Monsters in the Closet: Homosexuality in the Horror Film, and I thought it would have a lot on Frankenstein in here, which is what the movie hyper focuses on. But the author of this book is very much drawn to The Old Dark House being his queerest film, which I just watched
that. I just watched that. I mean, I was kind of half watching it. It was, the house was old, but not as dark as I wanted. That's what I'll say.
I was just curious if anyone's seen it, because they, like, that's what their whole passage is on, where they basically are like, well, we all know Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, of course. I don't need to write about that. Like, but this one is the one that really gets into.
I was gonna say, Bride of Frankenstein's pretty fucking gay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially about a gay man being set up with a lesbian, like, and people not realizing why they're not, you know.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, maybe this will work to get these people off our back.
And I guess The Invisible Man, I don't know, like, I didn't really think about it while watching the movie, but, like, I guess, like, you know, wanting to move through, like, mainstream society, like, without being noticed or something, or being, like, you know, be, like, sort of, like, having your own private life, like, while, like, living amidst the public and everything. I guess you could view it like that. But that movie also, what's great about that movie is it works just as, like, pure entertainment. Yeah. That's interesting. I definitely would like to see more Whale movies. He definitely had like a very good eye for all that stuff, and like really good use of sound design too, like the sound of like howling wind, and really good sense of, I mean, yeah, like the sense of humor in his movies. Like I love like the dumb British cops who are like just fumbling about as they're trying to stop the Invisible Man. Like it's so funny.
The only thing I don't know, because it's just The Old Dark House it's huge inspiration on Rocky Horror, where they're coming to this weird house that has weird characters and somebody's locked up that's like that they think is dangerous and whatnot. But I don't know, I'd have to rewatch it in that mind state, because I was just thinking of it as an over-the-top 1932 horror movie where everybody says, how do you do 50 times a day. But yeah, it wasn't terrible, but I do need to watch Invisible Man. I was going to watch Invisible Man last night, but I said, nope, I got to watch They Slash Them, and that's me. Okay.
I did something similar where I watched
yeah.
Speaking of people getting, starting to campaign for Oscars and horror movies, I guess Mia Goth is actually starting to get some recognition.
She's running, yes, but she's not going to get nominated, and that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. That movie's a hoot. I didn't like it as much as X, but yeah. She's great. Yeah, I guess going back to Gods and Monsters, though, did the ending feel a little like, I guess I just want to know the motive. Like, I sort of get Brendan Fraser's motivation of like, here, I'm going to help inspire you. The whole gas mask assault
that was so weird.
Is very sudden and in a way that I was like, this is really coming out of nowhere. And I was wondering, like, you know, I mean, I don't know about if Whale was very handsy in that type of way back then. But like, it does like take a turn in a way that I wasn't expecting. I also couldn't help but think about how A Single Man did that scene, but the exact opposite of it with the Nicholas Hoult character, where he's just like, no, go to bed. Like, and then it becomes extra tragic because, again, spoiler alert for that 10-year-old movie, but Colin Firth dies right after that. Right. So I was wondering, like, for a movie about this man's repressed sexuality and trying to get into the psychology of him, I felt like that was a bit much in terms of like, where is this coming from? Like, because he's already earned, you know, they've already been going back and forth already, and now Brendan Fraser is the most physically vulnerable he's ever been, and Ian McKellen's just automatically going to be like, put this gas mask on. And I'm just like, what? Like, I get that it's also tied to the PTSD, of course, obviously, but it is almost inexplicably just sudden for me.
Yeah, and interesting you bring up A Single Man, because I know that movie's gotten some flack from some critics about its like sort of queer self-loathing that's like that it deals with in the movie. But yeah, I mean, it's weird. It just like it kind of runs throughout this whole movie though, where like it's, you know, making that interviewer really uncomfortable and everything, where like he looks like just kind of like frightened to be like forced to undress him by McKellen and everything, and then like people saying to him like, you know, you're really embarrassing yourself, you know, running around with these young people. And it's like, look, it's like, not like he's, I mean, like, I don't know, like, if he was, like, preying on people who are, like, in ways that were, like, actually, like, illegal and anything, like, you know, whether they're too young or, like, it was, like, against their will, like it is, like, with the Fraser character as it's shown in the movie, that would be a problem. But if he's just having casual sex, who fucking cares? Like, the movie, like, seems to, like, adopt, like, this sort of, like, puritanical is maybe too strong a word, and I think it was saying like, get a hold of yourself with all this casual sex, and it's like, just like, okay, like, fucking calm down.
And on top of that, earlier in the movie, Ian McKellen's like, Brendan Fraser's like, you don't think of me that way, do you? And Ian McKellen's like, no, I know that you could break my neck if you know, wanted to. And then obviously that's meant to be his ultimate endgame is I want you to kill me. He hates himself so much, but like, did he have to go to that length?
Yeah.
You know, like it's
right.
It's strange. Like, I don't think the movie's saying it's okay, obviously. But it is weird to... I felt like there was, like... There's McKellen's performance, and then there's the way it's written. There's, like, a disconnect to me in terms of the gradual build-up to that conflict, where I just felt like it was too... contrived, I guess, but for reasons I don't fully understand.
Well, it feels like a bit of, it feels like a bit like a narrative portrayal, because he hasn't really seen, well, I mean, I guess like the strip poker scene, I guess, or the strip poker approach that he takes in the interview scene, I guess, is like an indicator of how it could manifest. But like, I mean, it's the thing of like, I don't know much about Whale's personal life, but if this is like, you know, obviously a historical fiction or movies that like are about real people, but like, you know, fudge the facts, as I say, like, it's, you know, if he's like that, if he was like that at all, like predatory to use the word, like, you know, then okay, I guess it makes sense that it's in the movie. But like, if it's not, it's like, that's like a pretty, like, that almost feels like a portrayal of like the real life legacy.
It's quite a claim.
Yeah.
To my understanding, you know, Bill Condon has, you know, this source material, a book that he had the adaptation on, but also, you know, spoke in a lot of gay Hollywood circles to people who knew James Whale. So, but like, that also brings up a certain type of morality, for a lack of a better word, because it's like, are you essentially making a movie that's gossip, you know?
Yeah.
Of certain, you know, parts of someone's life that may or may not be documentable. I at least appreciate that, while this is certainly dated in some of like what you were just describing, Charlie, in terms of like, this is a very 90s version of this movie. There is also a certain level that like, well, 90s versions of this movie didn't really represent Hollywood as it was in terms of like, this guy is a bit lecherous, and I don't think it necessarily forgives him for like some of that behavior in a way that I think probably other movies like it in the 90s would have.
Yes.
Especially if they weren't gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point, Chris. I guess my thing is also because he did commit suicide, that was all real. The fact that this is the last thing he does before committing suicide, I guess, if that didn't happen, is a little weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm being...
No, that's just
it's narratively neat.
Yeah, and this is the problems you get into when, even if it's extremely accurate type of biopic, it's never going to be completely accurate. So when you take a book that is somewhat fictional account of his life and whatnot and put it into screens, it's just like, and somebody like me and Bryden and probably the rest of you are not up on James Wells. It's just like, well, I saw the movie about him, and your mind automatically thinks that that's who the person is. So that's the thing you get into, which has brought us to present day with Blonde. So yeah.
Yeah, well, also, I couldn't help but think of, we do talk, I should also, because this just popped in my head, mention that I guess we're not all fully past this, because Bohemian Rhapsody only came out a few years ago, and that has a whole sequence where that's set to Another One Bites the Dust, him going into a gay club, and then the next scene, him being like, guys, I have AIDS. So...
And also, like, that's another thing where it's like, this guy's gay, and he also, or queer, rather, not to, like, put him into a box and everything, but like he like is talking to one of his waitresses and like grabs him by like the genitals and everything, and then that's like the start of their courtship and everything. It's just like, why would you paint it like that? Like, it doesn't. It's so weird. Yeah.
Well, to wrap this up, I'm going to suggest we play a certain type of game. Now, Chris, on your podcast, you do the IMDb game, but in our group chat and on our Cinephile, we do the Letterboxd game, which is the exact same thing, just Letterboxd, where we just guess the top 4 on Letterboxd, which is completely different from IMDb. So I'm curious if you would like to partake in a Letterboxd game of Lynn Redgrave.
Oh, wow, that's going to be hard, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we got top 4 Lynn Redgrave on Letterboxd.
I'd be willing to bet this is there.
No, it is not. It is number 6.
Wow, okay, I'm gonna not do that. Is Georgie Girl on there?
That is number 13.
Oh god, I'm gonna have
top
to forfeit.
4.
It's so different from IMDb because it's like, you're not known for any of this.
It's gonna be like a Transformers movie or something.
I would never have been able to guess number 1. I'm just throwing it out there.
Saw number 1 in theaters.
You did? Oh my goodness.
Have I conceivably seen these 4 movies?
I think you've seen 2 to 3 of them.
Okay.
Maybe.
And we'll give you, what we do when we play it is we give you the years of the movies
just
after
like,
3 wrong guesses.
Yeah.
So we'll do that after.
So 3 wrong guesses. Okay. What's another Day Lynn Redgrave movie? Because I think this and Georgie Girl are her nominations. Her Oscar nominations. Is it possible there's like TV on there?
No.
She is not one of the Redgraves that I am all that like familiar with her work too.
Let's just go with the years. Let's do that. Because her IMDb top 4 has none of these movies in her Letterboxd top 4.
Oh, wow.
Because her top 4 on IMDb is Gods and Monsters, Georgie Girl, Shine, and Kinsey. And Kinsey, she like barely has a role in.
Oh, no, she has like this monologue at the end.
Oh!
Where she's like, you made me save my life.
That's right. That's right.
Wow, even Shine. I forgot she was in Shine. But that's not even on her Letterboxd top 4.
Okay, the years. 2009, 2003, 2002, and 1972.
Okay, so 3 movies from the 2000s
Yes.
that I am just not remembering. Is it like Calendar Girls?
No, you're thinking of
No.
Jane Austen Book Club, and that's number 7.
Oh, okay.
I've seen that one.
I haven't even seen Calendar Girls yet. I'm just thinking of conceivable movies she could be in. Okay, you said 2009
Yes.
and 2003?
2003 and 2002, yes.
Okay. 02. I'm trying to think of like what either British cinema or like Oscar cinema would have been.
It's
Not that.
it's okay.
Is it neither?
It's number 3 is, I'd say, one of the more restrained films from a filmmaker I know you love, Chris, who also had a movie come out this year.
Filmmaker is that Spider?
Yes.
Yes.
Number 3.
Okay, that's Spider. Yeah.
Sorry if that was too big of a hint.
No. I got those pieces together. Okay, so that's 02. 03. Let me think of the similar thing of...
She is 4th billed
Oscar
in this.
Which is crazy, because I don't remember her in it.
I don't remember it at all. Continue.
Yeah.
03.
This is a big property normally known by Disney, but anybody can make these type of movies about this character.
Yeah.
It also didn't.
Oh,
make
so
any
it's
money.
like it's in public domain.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
What was 03 like a public domain movie? Like,
It was also, if I recall correctly, a Christmas release that did not do very well financially.
oh, okay.
Let me see.
So it's not like Stuart Little. I think Stuart Little was like 01 or 02.
I was about to say more fantastical than that, but what's more fantastical than a mouse that talks?
And Charlie, you were right. This movie was released on Christmas Day in the U.S. Wow, good memory.
I don't know how I remember that, because I don't remember much about this movie.
$100 million
Christmas?
budget, made 48 domestic and 121 worldwide.
And it got good reviews, if I recall correctly.
Who the hell is Jeremy Sumpter?
Holy shit.
Oh, from the Sasquatch?
Oh,
Gang?
Jeremy Sumpter is the Love Actually kid, right? No?
No, that's what's his name? Thomas Brody Sangster. I
Oh,
think is the kid.
yes. Who is no longer a tiny angel baby child. He is a full-grown adult male.
He and I also have the same birthday, which is weird. I just learned that.
Okay. 03. Love Actually is 03.
It is.
Christmas 03 was Love Actually.
Let's see. There was another movie made about this character recently, but they didn't use his full name, just his last name.
Can I also say, I don't know if this is going to be more confusing or not, but oddly enough, number 1 and number 2 are made by the same filmmaker.
Oh, yeah, it is!
And I had no idea that he also directed a film that I like, that I know you love, Chris.
Is that about a
Okay.
wedding? Wait, no. I
Yes.
think he's done multiple movies about a wedding.
Oh, is
He has
this Ang
done-
Lee?
No.
Oh, I wish.
Okay, here's
He's done a couple
Okay,
movies
so
about a
1
wedding.
and 3 are the same director. Is that 0309 or is that 0372?
1 and 2 were one and 2 are the same director.
03 and 09, same director, yes.
Okay.
He had been known for wedding movies up until this point.
Yes.
One other maybe esoteric hint, but I feel like we all kind of like trailers and everything. This trailer for this movie was scored to a Coldplay song.
Clocks.
Yes, I wasn't sure if that would be too specific.
I saw the trailer for this thing so many times, and then it made no money.
The trailer to the
09 movie?
The 03
Yes.
movie.
Or no,
03
the
movie.
03 movie.
Okay, so the 03 movie, which was in the public domain,
Yes.
and has had several things,
Several.
and it was $100 million budget released on Christmas Day, and I still can't get this.
It had Jason Isaacs in it.
And hello to
Pan,
him.
Peter Pan,
Yes.
Peter
Yes.
Pan, which is
There you
directed
go.
by Steven Summers.
No, that's the Mummy guy.
That's the Mummy. But no, it's
Deep
God, who did
Rising.
this Peter Pan movie?
Deep Rising is so good.
Deep
Which
Rising
I've never
kicks ass.
seen that Peter Pan,
Yeah.
so of course I didn't know.
So
the
from that same director in 09, often get this confused with Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Not because Lindsay is in it.
No,
Is Lindsay in it?
No.
Another famous
Okay,
redhead.
This is a director that I like, Charlie.
You gave one of his movies 4.5 stars, and I believe you've put it in your favorites on Letterboxd before. And it stars an actress that we all love.
Is this the 97 movie?
That is conceivably
94.
like Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Yes.
Because it stars a young woman.
Redhead.
Yeah, and...
Is it Easy A? Is it Emma Stone?
That's 2010.
Okay.
This is the conceit of the movie. I think this is based on a book, but it's like the whole thing is like this person has a problem that they need to solve, and it's
And the trailer was not set to Coldplay, I guess. I don't know. That would be weird if it was.
Probably set to like Natasha Bedingfield.
You joke, but possibly.
I'm gonna scrub the trailer. Hold on.
It's gonna drive me insane. What is the name of this director?
P.J. Hogan.
P.J. Hogan. Oh, Muriel's Wedding. P.J. Hogan.
Yes.
Love P.J. Hogan. Also, My Best Friend's Wedding. I'm not sure.
Yep.
That one's really,
I have not seen.
Which also
it's
rules.
so
I am
good.
that
Oh,
fifth
it's
star
good.
on that movie.
Oh, it's good.
Okay, what did P.J. Hogan do? Oh, Confessions of a Shopaholic?
There you go.
Yeah,
She just can't stop shopping. Yeah.
She can't stop. She's not a teenage drama queen. She is a shopaholic.
I haven't seen that either.
I haven't either. Okay, in the 1972 movie, this will be really easy. Very, very canceled director with a very long title.
Woody Allen.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything you wanted to know about sex, but were too afraid to ask.
Bing, bing, bing. Chris did it. Our first on mic Letterboxd game. Yes, that was great.
I love it.
Yes. I remember whenever we had Dan Mecca on one of our Cinephile games, I was just like, "Oh, we played the Cinephile game." He was like, "So you just stole that from This Is All." I was like, "Yes, yeah, we did." I changed it a little bit.
Well,
I won't get sued, okay?
Clearly, we don't make any money. We can't sue anyone. Definitely harder, I think, than the IMDb game. Granted, a game that I play constantly for my show, but like. Definitely, they use some different type of algorithm to, whatever the...
For Letterboxd, it's just popularity. So, it's not even known for, so yeah.
Are people really logging Confessions of a Shopaholic more than David Cronenberg's Spider?
Spider has only been on DVD, and I think it's like hard to stream.
Are people watching everything you always wanted to know about sex? Like, I mean, even when we were watching Woody Allen movies
You'd
like
be
that,
surprised. But I mean, her number 5 is Shine. I'm pretty sure people are going to watch a Woody Allen movie over Shine. And then number 6 is Gods and Monsters and Jane Austen Book Club. So she don't have a real poppin' filmography on Letterboxd, which is a shame.
She was also in the Wild Thornberrys movie.
Of course she was. Y'all remember that? And then the next year, the Rugrats went wild, and we just let it happen. Okay,
I think
you're
that was
laughing.
when I hopped
the
off.
Rugrats are running wild, and you're laughing.
Okay, I think I mentioned this, but we were at work the other day, and me and my friend Sage, we always talk about like Rugrats episodes that we remember, but we're like, this couldn't be real, right? There's an episode of Rugrats where Tommy is basically kidnapped by the women in Grey Gardens.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They put a little, and they put him in like this little thing, and they nickname him Bostwick.
Yes!
So they're like, Bostwick.
And then by the end of it, it's just like, oh, it's not child endangerment because this is Rugrats. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, Grandpa shows up and it was like, oh, just a misunderstanding. I'm like, they kidnapped your infant, dude.
Remember the terrifying episode where Angelica was stalked by that big ass baby?
No, that's the one that my friend Sage is terrified about.
That one's scary because his name is Big Baby, and he has a T-shirt that says Big Baby.
I'm not gonna lie. Okay, this might be TMI. I don't care. There was one time I was on a dating app and someone was clearly a bot was like, "Will you be my sugar baby?" And I just sent them that photo of the giant baby that says "Big Boy" from Rugrats on it.
Okay.
I got one of those bots recently on Instagram that I was like, this could conceivably not be a bot. Do I want $700? Maybe. But this man, the introductory sentence was, "I'm sorry if this offends you." Period. kept going. I am looking for you to be my sugar baby. This requires nothing sexual of you, only a few hours of your time a week. And I was like, dude, I don't really have a few time. I mean, I deleted it, but in my brain
I would
like,
rather it be
I would
sexual
love to
because
have
I don't
a few
have
hours
time.
of your time. Right. Well, I think it was just, if this was not a bot, it was just a man who wanted to pay me several $100s to just maybe listen to him. So, like, I don't know. There could be worse.
Do we have to meet up, or can you just text me all this shit? Because I'll do that. That sounds...
Do you want to guess
like,
Ian McKellen's top 4 most popular movies on IMDb?
And then he blocked me. What an ass. Yeah.
And then he put a gas mask on.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at KevBonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at JDoyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CTNash91. Once again, thank you for listening.